Hello there, and thank you for clicking on this video. It means a lot because this is a special upload since it is my first podcast episode, and this is something I would like to do more. Me and my friend here, we just sit down and have a fun conversation. I feel like it keeps moving, and we cover some interesting topics with some thoughts to share on things regarding tennis culture, our competitive relationship to tennis, and the conversation just flows in a really natural way. And I think a lot of the subject matter and maybe the way in which we discuss it should be a good listen for you guys. So if you guys have any comments or ideas of topics that you would like us to cover in the future, let me know. I plan to have different kinds of guests on here, from owners of certain tennis companies, whether it be strings and whatnot, or just maybe some really close tennis friends of mine, such as this gentleman sitting next to me on the couch, which you'll see in a second. So anyway, I appreciate that you clicked on the video, and hopefully you make it to the end of the video. I'll see you there. I thought it'd be cool to coordinate it to me opening up this fucking seltzer water. Oh, I just swore. That's fine. I'm gonna pretend like I don't. I do sometimes. Dude, especially on the tennis court. All right.
There it is.
You want to talk about profanity? I actually that's a natural subject to get into, specifically like in the culture or the etiquette of tennis. Because I keep it pretty PG, I would say, on my content, but if you catch me out there on a bad day on the tennis courts, I'm definitely a little bit more of a I speak a lot of French, if you will, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I try not to be that, mostly just because I think sometimes it's just immature. Like I'm out there just beating myself up. It doesn't look good. Maybe it doesn't feel good, but I'm also not on the side of just completely restraining yourself from letting your anger out. Yeah. It's a balance thing. Sometimes I'm out there beating myself up, and that's just lame.
Yep, I understand. It's definitely reality.
Yeah.
I mean, if you watch tennis on TV, it's like you'll hear, if you're listening close, they can't bleep it out always, so
yeah,
you'll definitely hear it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, there's some that are just like, wow, that was terrible.
Yeah, there's some really bad ones. Kyrgios has some bad ones.
Yeah, naturally.
And then if you speak other languages,
he's like the ambassador of I don't know,
Benoit Paire in French.
Oh, okay. I bet
you know what to listen to.
I bet, dude. I really don't know any French, but man, for some reason I can see that. Huh. I know there's it's like a relatively viral video of Federer saying a couple of swear words.
Yeah.
Which is, because it's rare and it's Federer.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how much his image gets in his own way of expressing himself.
Yeah, I'd say definitely to some extent.
Because he's got a couple of moments where he's cracked on TV, but it's not like the camera's necessarily that he knows that it's on him.
Mm-hmm.
But there was one where he's talking to the umpire, and he's like, "This is fucking bullshit, man."
Yeah.
I think, is that what he says?
I don't remember exactly what he says, but yeah, he's not using nice words with the umpire, that's for sure. So.
But every time you hear him, it's kind of like, all right, man.
Yeah. No, it was nice actually in a way because it was genuine.
Yeah, it was.
Like he was upset and he expressed that.
Yeah.
So.
And that's funny. Literally, first podcast and just swear words immediately. That's I like that. I mean, that's honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it too.
Maybe that should.
I'm fine with it. I don't mind swear words.
Just get them out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Really, it releases the tension.
I like them.
Yeah.
There's a time and a place.
There is a time and a place.
You
know, that kind of makes, I think, a natural segue is talking about Kyrgios.
Mm-hmm. Just
because he represents a side. I don't even know if he represents a side of tennis. It almost feels like who he is a side that a lot of the tennis culture kind of rejects.
Yeah.
And shuns and shames and doesn't want that to be any part of the sport. And I think now that the culture of tennis is kind of, I mean, it's definitely modernized in a lot of ways, but it's modernizing in the sense that it's kind of ridiculous to assume that a tennis player should just be kind of this cookie cutter professional that just follows all these formalities and has all these manners and etiquette. I personally, I guess I'm on the side of thinking that if you think that Kyrgios is like literally a bad person,
mm-hmm.
or that he's a terrible sportsman or something like that. I just feel if he is the epitome of the worst tennis player in terms of manners and stuff like that, if you compare that to some other sports, that guy's an angel.
Yeah, that's true.
And a lot of those guys in those other sports don't really get the kind of flack that Kyrgios does. And I think it's because the culture of those sports are so different, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not going to name names, partly because I couldn't. Honestly, I'm pretty ignorant when it comes to, like, even for tennis, I don't really watch that much. But, you know, basketball players, football players. But obviously, you know, contact sports like boxing and stuff, you almost expect that. It's almost part of the theatrics of it. But why can't it be in tennis a little bit? Like, a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I think now... Well, you had John McEnroe back in the day.
That's true.
But I think maybe now it's a bit more open for different personalities, but definitely not to the same extent as other sports. So,
because, well, some of the argument is that he's bad for tennis.
Yeah.
And some people also argue that he's good for tennis because of that, I don't know, that controversial way of being on the court.
Yeah. Well, people also just like the drama.
Yeah,
so
they do.
Even people that say they hate the drama, it's like they kind of like it. It's like, oh, he's bad for the sport. But
you're
like,
attracted to it.
You're watching, you're commenting, you're interested. So. Yeah, you might not like it, but you kind of like it.
But so you might not like it, you might not stand for it, but in a way you are rewarding it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to see tennis shift a bit in a more expressive direction, because it seems very kind of like not elitist, but I mean it is like a sport that tends towards the elite or more rich.
Yeah, and those are the roots of it, aren't they? Yeah.
Like golf.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. You don't like watch a golf and see them like throwing their clubs and stuff.
Yeah. And I guess it's kind of similar watching a golf game and a tennis game. There's so much silence. You know, they got that term golf claps. But I think watching a tennis set is very similar in that way.
Yep.
So yeah, the culture is very to themselves. So, yeah.
I personally like Kyrgios though.
I do too.
I like the good and the bad. It's you know, there's things that he could definitely change and it would be for the better, but
sure,
he's a human being, so
yeah. There's a funny thing, because I think a lot of the people that criticize him are also sometimes the same people that would say you should be able to express yourself. But I also think that if you only think someone should express themselves through this narrow lens of what is appropriate through the old formalities of tennis etiquette, then you're not really being truthful about expressing yourself and accepting that, you know? And also, just objectively, if Kyrgios is like the modern example of the worst, it's like, put that into perspective with other sports, it's really not that bad.
Yeah.
And also, I just think it's ridiculous that people don't try to take a couple of minutes and just try to empathize with the stress of being a professional anything. Yeah. Like the amount of work that goes into being that good, the amount of sacrifice. You know?
That's true. That's a good point, because if you sit down and you're calm, I'm sure like Kyrgios rewatching some of his worst moments would say when he's calm, like, oh yeah, I screwed up. Yeah. Like I shouldn't have done that. Yeah. But we've all been there. When you're on the court, you're pissed off. It's not going well. Like, the worst comes out.
Yeah, I've had that. So like I was saying, I'm not, always so PG-13 on here I am. But when I'm in my studio or whatever, I'm calm, I'm prepared, I'm composed. I don't have all these stressful variables. I'm not out here beating myself up. But I'm also like on camera, so I could edit something if I mess up. But out there in the real world, and I'm not a professional, I'm not putting myself through the gauntlet that the professionals are. Like, I'm not eating the perfect diet. I'm not training 6 to 10 hours a day. I'm not traveling from one country to another and like adjusting to time zones. And then on top of that, have to bring my best game just so I can make it through like the rounds of some tournament where eventually you're hoping to like run into Nadal or Djokovic. I mean, imagine the stress of that, like maintaining your body and mentality to be able to perform at that level, to even be physically capable of that, even being in your potential. Yeah. And you're just expected to have perfect manners all the time. fuck that. Yeah, dude, that's fuck insane. That. So I think that really just reveals to me from the audience side that they really lack the perspective of how difficult it actually is to be a professional, because I guarantee that most people, if they had to do what those people did, they would have broke down a long time ago. A long time ago. So like, even as someone that's, like a relatively serious-ish tennis player, I will end up swearing out there on the courts. It's like, what if I had to do 10 times as much, maintenance and exercise, and I had to play tournaments when I didn't feel like it, and Yeah. I mean, how much more would I be swearing? Honestly.
Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe I'd make adjustments along the way, but like if I crack here and there, it's human. It's amazing that some people don't.
Yeah. Well, I think it also is interesting to see a player's maturity, like over the years. Like Federer, early on, he was throwing rackets, he was cursing, and he admitted it. Like there's video out there, so there's proof. That's right.
Yeah.
But even from his junior days, and over time, he got better. So I think Kyrgios has gotten a bit better as well. He's taking the sport a bit more seriously.
I think so. Yeah.
But it's also interesting. Yeah, he's made this point time and time again, like how boring it would be if everyone were just like just tennis. Like you just go up to the line, you serve. It's all the good etiquette. You don't say come on too much. You don't throw your racket. Yeah. Like there's all this stuff that you just have to follow, and at the end of the day, you can do whatever you want. Really, there's a rule book, but you can bend the rules. You can break them. You can get code violations, point penalties.
Yeah, code violations. I mean, I think it's fair to have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a record for that, right? Was it him that just went and took like a bathroom break and just smashed the hell out of a bunch of rackets?
That was awesome. I love that. I mean, that's another thing that I wanted to say though. Like, if you look at like tennis TV, a good sign to me is the fact that, of the evolution, is that they embrace that more. Whereas in the past, like it was just highlights, and if something happened in a match, you'd watch the highlights, and like the racket breaks and smashes wouldn't be in the highlights.
Yeah.
But now they might put them in there, or they sometimes will do like a highlight reel of the racket smashes.
Yeah.
Or there are a few channels out there that are dedicated exclusively to tennis drama. Like even on the Challenger Tour. So they'll have like, I don't know, if somebody's, I don't know how it exactly works. Like if the creators are out there just like constantly watching a lot of matches, or having other people that have seen matches send them clips and say like, hey, include this in your little series. But yeah, people like it. There's an audience for it. And tennis TV, the ATP, I think, is embracing it a bit more. That instead of just like, I don't know, almost wanting to hide it, and it's like a secret.
Yeah.
Protecting
like
people,
this ugly side of tennis that we shouldn't show the public or something. No,
it's there. If you watch a match live, you'll see all that. You'll hear all that.
Yeah.
It's life. It's interesting.
It is. And I guess the honesty of it's important too, because if they never showed that, you wouldn't understand to some degree what the player's actually going through. I think when you see someone break their racket, I mean, they're not just, they don't think it's perfectly okay to just break their racket, but they kind of just shatter through all that composure and etiquette that they're supposed to have and do something that is a little bit maybe shameful, because it's not like they break their racket and people are like, yes, we love that. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah. Nobody's like, you should break more rackets.
You don't want to be that person breaking your racket. So
I also think it makes it more interesting to see the players that don't struggle as much with that, or they're able to keep it more under control. Like you appreciate that more. Like Nadal never throws his racket.
He's got a whole philosophy about that.
Racket.
Yep. Has he ever?
I don't think he's ever.
Never, huh?
His Uncle Tony wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
And I could also see that going the other way. Like your Uncle Tony tells you not to. And then
sure.
You break even more.
Yeah. Yeah, they could go that way, really just,
Or you see players where they have their parents as coaches and like that pressure. Tsitsipas, like with his dad, there's that tension.
Yeah.
It's just the interesting variety of tennis.
Sure. Yeah, it's hard to keep that toxicity out of yourself, but also out of your game.
Yeah.
So it comes through sometimes and it's a part of it. But yeah, sometimes I embrace my anger, and sometimes I find that it actually, I'll say stuff like, move your fucking feet at myself when I know that I've just been lazy to 5 or 6 balls in a row. And that's the reason that I wasn't in the right position. By the 5th or 6th time, I've been screaming at myself in my head, but by the 5th or 6th time, it's still happening. Like I just erupt with this anger, and then maybe I'll actually start to adjust. Yeah. You'll see, I'll get lower. I'm like, okay, man, I'm getting this ball. I'm not letting it happen again. Like whatever happens, I'm there.
Yep.
I'm there. I'm going to be in a good position. And you'll see sometimes that anger actually comes through, and suddenly there's a lot more intensity and fire, but also maybe consistency, because I'm not fighting all of my emotions. I'm just aligned with an emotion that I'm honestly going through, and I'm letting it channel through me. But sometimes I'm calm and I'm composed and I'm very loose and relaxed and I'm just getting to everything. I'm not fighting myself. But other times you just got to like just fire up. And maybe it's not pretty every time, but you know, whatever it means to play your best tennis on any given day could be different. Yeah, definitely. Depending on the day or how they get. Yeah. I mean, I've gotten mad about different things. Maybe the wind just keeps messing me up in some specific way, or it keeps changing up on me so I can never adapt to it. I mean, that'll light me up. You've seen me get mad on a windy day. I hate windy days, man.
I kind of like them.
I know you kind of like them. I think my attitude's changed a little bit. There's so many windy days where I've just decided to hit. I don't know why. I don't know exactly what happened, but yeah, I've loosened up a bit about windy days. Yeah, or just poor court quality. I can just avoid that, though. If a court's going to mess up my tennis, I probably just won't play there. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I'm a bit more adaptable.
Yeah.
But
I think I have become that a little bit, but I'm still like pretty picky. And I think I'm known for being kind of like selective. Yeah. But sometimes people come to respect that. They respect that. They notice like, oh, the balls actually bounce really nice here.
Yeah.
Like you bring a leaf blower out and blow the leaves off, so we're not going to slide on them. Yeah. Yeah. So I've gotten a little whatever for being that way about it, but like, why should I change? Why should I be, you know, oh, whatever happens. I don't care about the quality or environment of my tennis. So yeah, but I think, yeah, if you're like a tournament player or something, you just got to accept that there's a lot of variables that might mess up your tennis that are environmental. And, you know, I mean, if you're going to play tournaments, you got to accept that.
Yeah. Even on like the Futures Tour, like they're not playing at the best clubs.
Yeah.
Courts are what they are.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're worse than like some public courts.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I'm sure.
But they're playing professional matches for prize money, for ATP points.
Yeah.
And if you want to work your way up, you got to go through those tournaments. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I'm a bit of a purist in that way, which is actually part of, you know, I've said this in a few videos, but I'm not really the tournament type of player. Yeah. I don't really have interest in playing tournaments. And I think that's partly because I just like the flexibility in my schedule of not having to drive somewhere and pay a decent amount of money to, you know, ultimately lose the tournament. I'm not going to win probably. You know, if I'm lucky, I'll get to some part of it, but somebody's, you know, going to be way better, especially if you're playing open. Like, how far are you going to get in an open tournament?
Yeah, they're professional players.
You're going to get some like 4.5s or 5.0s in there, and then you're going to get like, you know, 6.0s, Division 1s, or like rusty Division 1s. All those guys would kick my ass. And so why would I pay to do that necessarily? Yeah. Especially if it's like 40 miles away and it's windy. Or maybe it's like 110 and the sun's in my eyes. Like, why would I want to put myself through that? So that's like my perspective. I understand what people do.
Yeah, I get both sides as well.
Yeah.
I get, like, I've kind of moved more towards your side as well. Like, tennis almost as an art form.
Huh.
Like, you like just playing the game. Yeah. You can play points, you can compete, but you don't need to, like, have the validation maybe of a tournament result.
Yeah. Yeah, and I, you know, and
or you can just hit.
Yeah, and I was saying about being a bit of a tennis purist too. I think my philosophy is more so that I will prioritize having conditions that are conducive to having the best tennis. Like no crazy wind to mess me up, no crazy light in my face, no cracks on the ground that are going to give you some crazy bounce. Like just if I can take as many of those variables away and make everyone's tennis just about their tennis, and everything that happens is your responsibility. It's not the court's fault or the weather's fault or the sun in your eyes, like making it so they have to serve in some weird way.
Yeah.
None of that stuff. And I get the whole like, well, everybody's got to deal with it. But it's like, yeah, but now everybody's playing a little bit more environmentally affected tennis, which probably isn't really favoring the quality of tennis overall.
Yeah,
you know what
most likely not.
Like, are you playing your best tennis when there's, you know, sporadic winds that are blowing at 20 miles an hour and there's a little bit of cracks on the court in some places where the ball always bounces up but only on one side or something? Like, that's annoying. And for me, I'm just like, this is annoying. I'd rather just not play at this court. So yeah, when it comes to that at the professional level, I also understand the argument of like who can handle the conditions better. Yeah,
that's kind of part of the competition.
Totally.
Like how fit you are. Is it hot? Is it humid? The wind? And I think that can add to a match sometimes, but it can also lower the quality of play.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said for the potential of, this hasn't been talked about that often, or maybe much at all. But like kind of a more UFC, like if you think about the UFC, they'll have a fight that's being organized like a month or several months in advance. And they've got the arena, it's going to be in Vegas or wherever, and the guys are preparing for that match. And I think that could kind of be interesting in tennis where you have, I don't know, like a Djokovic-Nadal match that they could set up. Obviously, you wouldn't get the same tournament setting where you need to go through the draw and arrive at that point. But that could be interesting to see.
Definitely.
Like if Djokovic and Nadal were to take several weeks and just like prep for one match or a few matches.
Yeah.
And see how it, like, okay, they decide on the setting, the surface, the balls, all that. Indoor, outdoor, that's the part of the setting. But I think that could be interesting.
Yeah. There's
hype it up a bit.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of that marketability that those other, branded versions of fighting sports could, there's definitely something in there. I thought the COVID response, the Mortaglu or whatever, I forget what that was called.
The UTS, United Tennis, or Ultimate Tennis Showdown. Okay.
And that was some point system that was separate from ATP, right?
Yeah, they had a completely different scoring system, shorter sets. I think they played Let's as well. Just stuff to kind of speed the game up.
Yeah.
But a little bit too much, in my opinion.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if I personally I didn't watch very much of it, but I didn't, see something where I thought like, oh, this is what tennis needs necessarily. But I liked that there was some kind of innovation in what tennis is, because I've also had this thought of like, if there were little rule changes in tennis, or the surface were a little bit bigger or shorter, or the net was a little bit higher or a little bit smaller, that would probably change who the best of all time was considered to be, because it just so happens that tennis is what it is right now. And I know certain people, like Federer especially, have survived through many eras of tennis. So he's, kind of been at the top despite these changes. But had changes gone in a different direction, it's very possible that they would have not favored strengths of his game as much, for example. So if you just took a hard surface court and made it a lot faster, for example, and that was just a tennis court, nobody questioned what it was ever, and the net was a little bit shorter, like those two variables, which might seem subtle, might make it that much more effective for somebody who has like an Isner serve. Yeah. Like now the net's a little bit lower, so the serve is even more ridiculous. Yep. And the court's even faster, so the ball doesn't slow that much after the bounce. And it's like his serve is already on the verge of being virtually impossible to return. And so what if it was just a little bit faster and a little bit easier to get it, at some crazy angle? So I think that they have made adjustments over time, though, to make tennis a little bit more leveled. Yeah. Yeah. But had they not, other people could have been the best.
Yeah, that's true. Those are good points. The courts have slowed down. The balls, they're slower. They're heavier. What else? I think it's cool that the lines and the net height and stuff haven't changed. Yeah. Obviously the racket and string technologies have changed a lot.
That is cool, actually, that has changed, but the surface and the court dimensions or something, maybe not too much. That is actually cool. Yeah.
That adds some value for sure.
Yeah. And you can see the game adapt despite the court itself maybe not technically adapting so much, but despite the points, that was another thing I was thinking, like even if the point system was maybe different, it would.
Oh, that could as well. Yeah, definitely.
Or if you just never had best of fives, like if you didn't even have Grand Slams. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's in a good place, but it's hard to say because we don't. What if they played like best 5 out of 7? Or what would that? 4 out of 7?
Or if they just never had second serves.
4 out of 7, not 5 out of 7.
Like if you never had a second serve, then suddenly like getting your first serve in would be the most important thing. And that would change. Like that'd affect who,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That'd be interesting to see. I'd be interested to watch a match of just only
I've thought about that. That's the kind of stuff I want to see, though, is like,
because then it's like
a slightly different rule set. I don't want to like mess with the surface too much, but change the rules. Like,
yeah, the one serve would be interesting because you could risk it. You could go for the ace even when you're down, or you could say, oh, it's 40 love. Like, I'll go for a big serve, just finish off the game. Or you could say, like, well, I'm not winning any rallies. I'm down love 30. Let's go for an ace and maybe get to 15-30, 30 all.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you'll see that in today's game where, like, they'll go for a big second serve. Kyrgios, Bublik. They'll just throw in like 130 mile an hour or 220 kilometers on the second serve, and it works.
Yeah.
But it would also be interesting to see like how would Isner adapt to that, or Opelka. Do they go for a slower, like more of a second serve, try to rally more?
Yeah, and the points probably wouldn't last as long either, right? Because they're less serving. Maybe people go for consistency more on the serve.
But more consistency on the serve might lead to more returns in play and then more rallying.
I see what you mean, actually.
But it could speed up the game because you don't need, like, you just need to get one ball. You don't need to, like, you miss a serve, the ball kid needs to get the ball, you wait, you bounce the ball for a second serve. Like, there's all that time of just prep. Like, Nadal, between a first and second serve, takes like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
At least. Other guys take 10 seconds between a point. So that's all time that adds up. And that's one thing they talk about a lot in tennis is at the professional level, at least when it comes to like it not being as watchable of a sport, is how long the matches are.
Yeah.
And they're always trying to speed it up with like the shot clock now, or like the towels doesn't, like with COVID, that actually kind of slows things down. But yeah, they're trying to look for little small rule innovations to get the game to move faster. Yeah. And that's what UTS was trying to do as well. But I think they overdid it. I even think like the next gen ATP finals in Milan, I think those are, I don't know, that whole rule set, like they play like a set to 4 games.
As opposed to 6.
Yeah, it's just too short. Like
what are their tiebreakers if they have that?
Do they play it at? I think they might play it at 3 all.
Okay, but do they do like a super tiebreaker or just
a regular tiebreaker? Regular tiebreaker, okay. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
There might be some sudden death thing. I don't know. I don't know because I actually kind of lost interest.
Okay.
Like I don't really care about that result.
Yeah, I see.
I went to it. One year, and I found myself like watching the matches, just kind of like, oh, the set's over, like you get somebody goes up 3 love, that's 1 break, and it's just kind of like, all they need is one more game, and that's the set. And like the set, it just starts and it can end and kind of die just so quickly. Whereas 3 love in a regular tennis set is far from over.
That's true.
You can be up 5 love and still lose the set.
That's true. And I guess that comeback is harder too because you got to do all that.
Yeah. But there's also that tension building, and then like maybe when somebody starts coming back, it's 5-1, it's 5-2, it's 5-3. Like I like that.
Yeah, well now you're getting worn out because this guy's kind of warming up maybe. Yeah. I
like to watch that. I like to play, like I like to come back. I also like the tension of like, oh, I need to finish the set off. Whereas like just a sudden death format is kind of oh, it's over.
Yeah, the sudden death format. Yeah, which is, I guess, what it would kind of be if that, that isn't your example. I was saying if the courts are a little faster, maybe it would just be kind of sudden death up against him.
Yeah, or it'd be more like baseball. I think about that. Like, baseball's just so much pitching. Like, strike, and then maybe you hit a foul ball or something, or a home run. But there's not that much, like, back and forth, like somebody hits the ball, and then, like, in the outfield, they're passing it, and he's just, like, trying to decide, do I stop on the first base, or can I make it to second? There's not, like, too much action going on. And that's the same thing if it's all just serving and one shot. Or serving and volleying was more like that.
Yeah. I definitely appreciate how tennis kind of evolved out of the serve and volley area.
Yeah.
And I know that's partly because of some of the surface changes that have happened. So again, like just changing the surface has largely influenced the way in which tennis is played. But I think probably even more than that, it's probably the racket technology and the string technology. But it's all the things. Like, yeah. And I think as far as like the influence of changing the surface goes, it's not far behind the influence of the rackets changing and the strings changing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and serve and volley is still a viable option, even
is.
at the professional level. Some guys play like mostly serve and volley, and
but
I think
the surface is a little slower now.
Yeah,
right? It is a little bit slower.
But I think it's more interesting to have like mostly baseline play with some serve and volley rather than mostly volley play with some baseline.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like if there's if everyone's serving and volleying, and then there's like, oh, there's this guy who plays well from the baseline. It's, I don't know, it just feels more lopsided. Even though maybe now it's more lopsided towards more baseline play, I just think, mixing in some serve and volley or seeing a pure serve and volley here and there is a better change up than the other way around for whatever reason. Yeah, because I mean it's hard to even make the argument that like a good serve and volley point, how long does that really last compared to like a really good point not played from the baseline? You know, you can have like a 25 shot rally. Takes a while, but
that's a good
there's
point.
So much athleticism in that point. There's so much action.
Yeah, it showcases a lot more. Well, yeah, because a good serve and volley point would almost imply that it's over quickly.
Yeah.
Because otherwise this guy's really bad at volleying.
Yeah. Or even if the other guy gets the ball back and you like there are a few volleys, maybe an overhead hit. It's like, well, how many volleys, like how many balls can the guy get back before it's like, like what you said, the guy's just bad at net. The guy just
can't put it away.
Yeah, it's not a good point.
Yeah.
It's just a bad point.
Yeah.
That can be a cool all-court point, you know, some from the baseline, then maybe one guy gets to the net, then he gets lobbed, he goes back to the baseline, a drop shot, the other guy comes in. That can be cool, but still, I think it's more the baseline play that completes that rather than the net play. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, and I think having a more baseline balanced game does probably showcase a more well-rounded type of, you know, there's more variation in the kinds of tennis players who are viable at the highest level, for example. Yeah.
But also if you think like of a sick baseline forehand winner, there's so much variability. Like it can be really powerful. It can be a sharp angle with a lot of spin. Whereas like a great volley winner, there's some, you can have a great drop volley.
Yeah.
But if just like a drive volley, there's not that much variability.
Yeah, that's so true.
Or even athleticism, you know, you just kind of meet the ball, you put it away.
Yeah.
Whereas a great forehand, a hard struck forehand, a really heavy spin forehand, or just a well-placed forehand, it's more of a work of art.
Yeah. Yeah, that style comes through a lot more. Versus just serve big, get to the net.
Yep.
Yeah. The camera says something. Let me see what that is.
Yeah.
Can you read that?
Movie recording has been stopped automatically.
Okay, so we might have ran out of space on there, but that's cool.
All right, well, we did something. We got warm.
Okay. All right, well, I have no idea where the audio cut out, but I guess it did at some point. We'll cut it all out and just, Okay.
It's back on?
I think it's recording. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know where it cut out, but yeah, that was cool. We can do it again sometime. I mean, it was the first one, so if there's any technical difficulty, I think the people will understand.
Definitely.
But yeah, we got into some good conversations, and yeah, hopefully that was fun for people to listen to. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more we could talk about, and we will. But for now, I just wanted to kind of turn the camera on and set up a space, and see how the conversation flowed out. So whatever it is, it will be up there, and I guess we'll see in the next one if we do it again, which I think we will.
Yeah, I think we will. I think we can get. I mean, this one we went just kind of off the cuff.
Yeah, there's a degree that's necessary.
But I think we could maybe start the next one off the cuff and then work in
and
some
make
of
sure
the
you cover
topics
some of the
that we
things
had already in mind.
Yeah. So I guess with the idea of topics, if anyone has something that they'd like to see discussed or questions or whatever, honestly, just put it in the comments and we'll see if that's something we can kind of riff off of. Yeah. So I'll leave it at that for now. Yeah. So this is Ace. You've probably seen him in a couple of videos.
I've been in a few, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned that do you feel like you're from Italy or from Davis? You're from...
Both, I guess.
Yeah, you're from Cali.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, you've been in Italy for quite some time, so you got some interesting perspective. And my first time playing clay was out there, so
we had some good sessions.
Cool. Definitely some good sessions. So yeah, guess you could ask European tennis stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, we'll leave it at that for now. We'll see you in the next one. Wow, you sat through that whole thing. Well, thank you so much for watching and listening. As I said in the beginning, it would be awesome if you want to leave some comments regarding any topics that you might want us to cover or questions that you might have for us. I don't know exactly if it's going to be me in the next one only or if he will come back. Sometimes I'm sure he will. And yeah, just let us know if you have any questions. And I, again, hope to have some different guests in the future, but this is the first one. So whatever happens, wherever this goes from now, it all started right here. So thank you. Be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to support me and my channel, you can follow my Instagrams, or you can check out some links below to help me through some affiliate links where I actually get a small commission on the sales at no extra cost to you. Check out courtsidetennis.com. All those links are in the description, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you.